Well, if it pleases the board and our district leadership team, I think we'll go ahead and get this started. I see the numbers are still kind of rolling in, but in the interest of time and schedule, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. So welcome everybody to the regular board meeting of the Oakwood City Schools Board of Education, our regular August 17th, 2020 meeting, streaming live from Harmon Elementary and across our Zoom platform. We'll get started here in a second, but wanted to certainly pause for one moment and thank the community for its continued engagement, the great questions being asked, the communications and the dialogue that we're having with many. It's much appreciated, and we appreciate your patience and your trust and your continued rapport with the board and the district. And as always, and as we've communicated with many of you, we continue to diligently pay attention to the data, the information available, and to keep ourselves as informed as possible to make sure that we are reaching and making the best decisions on behalf of our students, our staff, and certainly our community. So continued thanks. I know that we will have a few public comments, a few in person who will appear at Harmon Elementary, and then a few via the Zoom call. So we will get to those shortly, but allow us to conduct some procedural governance in the beginning. So Mr. Shaw, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Quigley?
Here.
Ms. Starr?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Duell?
Here. And for those able, would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I please have a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Shaw?
Ms. Starr?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye. And may I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 13th, 2020 regular board meeting?
So moved. Second.
Dan?
Ms. Starr?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye. Dr. Ramey, accommodations and public comments?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Duell. First, we've got Catherine Josue, who's the Oakwood Schools Foundation Grants Chair, to give us a report and tell us about some of the great work that the foundation is doing.
Thank you for allowing me the privilege to speak with you tonight. In normal years, OSF would be reaching out to teachers as they go back to school and encouraging them to apply for our fall grant cycle. But as we all know, this is not a normal year. In preparation for the school year, OSF reached out to Dr. Ramey and Dr. Lang and inquired about what assistance we could provide regarding the district's reopening plan. Based on feedback received from various focus groups that took place this summer with teachers, staff, and Oakwood parents, concerns were raised about providing an extra layer of health protection with improved air quality in the classrooms. As such, I am pleased to announce that full grant funding has been approved
Thank you. And certainly thank you to the foundation for all the great work and support that you continue to give. It's going to be great to have that extra layer. Thanks. Also, wanted to read a quick commendation for the Oakwood Schools. Congratulations, Oakwood Schools, and Community Relations Director Tracy Hale for being recognized by the Ohio Schools Public Relations Association as a 2020 achievement winner in 4 categories. The district received a mark of excellence for the following: for the 2019 Oakwood City School District Quality Profile, the Oakwood Schools website, the Welcome to Oakwood Schools video, and for the social media coverage. So congratulations to Tracy and to the entire district. We are very, very fortunate to have somebody as talented and as professional as Tracy running our community relations department. So thank you, Tracy.
Okay, we're going to move on to public comments here, and the way that we're going to do it this evening is that we're going to present the public comments in the order of the request, and with the grace of each of those presenters, please allow me to perhaps reference you by your first name, so that I do a decent job of getting your first name right and not upsetting too many of those last names. So I'm going to begin first with James, and ask that he speak, and actually I'm going to pause you there, James, because what I'd like to do for those at least participating via Zoom, per board policy in typical governance, what the board intends to do is to receive the comments, reflect upon those, and then after that reflection and opportunity to circle back to the participants and the presenters as we're able and as it seems appropriate. So in the interest of time and to allow the presenters and to preserve the schedule, please don't be offended, and please don't read anything into the board's lack of engagement. We're simply listening this evening, and we will certainly be in touch as we have in the recent weeks. So, James?
Thank you, Mr. Duell.
Hold on just a
And
second.
may it please the board. As I speak to you tonight, as after I've written you and to Dr. Ramey, I thank you for your feedback. Our concerns are still here, that we are still faced with the choice of the physical danger for our children and until very recently when we received the privacy practices, a potential data uncertainty, the data danger for our children of option 2 of schools PLP. We've had 2 good days of data the last 2 days on this, but it's not enough. We are down to where our 7-day average is 4.6% of positivity rates. And that's the best it's been in weeks. Whereas New York, which is opening, is below 1%. And as we all know, in just 2 weeks after school is set to open is the Labor Day weekend. And these holiday weekends have coincided with spikes in the virus. And so I'm asking you, I hope that it is not too late to reconsider and consider going remotely for even 4 weeks. Our sister districts in 45409 and 45419, Kettering and Dayton, have begun remotely. Public Health Dayton Montgomery County has recommended the schools open remotely. The governor, as of last Thursday, told us that we were still in the red zone and did not at all indicate that it would be safe to open. Our what I consider sister districts in Bexley and Ottawa Hills, in densely populated inner ring suburbs of Columbus and Toledo respectively, are starting remotely. This is not anyone's ideal, it is not ours, but we feel that we understand that there are drawbacks to opening remotely. But given all of the dangers and the uncertainty that these first few weeks will bring, just as an example, this afternoon of my alma mater, the University of North Carolina, has had to scrap in-person classes. We have the University of Dayton right on our southern edge, our northern edge, opening in phased reopening. We don't know as I said, the University of North Carolina had to go to remote classes after just 1 week because of an outbreak. We simply do not know what is going to happen. We have not we as anyone to whom I'm addressing, but as a country, as a state, and as a county, we did not do the work to get the virus under control to an extent that we can safely reopen for the inevitable, so that when the inevitable cases do occur, it's not driven out of control. We are not there, and maybe it will be okay in a month. We could see how. I'm not suggesting a whole semester, even a whole quarter. I'm just asking even for 4 weeks to see, 2 weeks to get us to Labor Day, and then 2 weeks to see if the virus spikes before we reopen. And it can be reassessed from there. The drawbacks of further remote learning are far outweighed by the risks, in my mind, the risks of starting in person and then having to close abruptly. Again, the transitions for the kids were traumatic enough in March, and we don't need to have multiple ones. We don't need to be getting them geared up to go in person only to have to take them out again. 1 second, please.
James, you have about 45 seconds left.
Okay. I'll yield the rest of my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Heather, next up, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Heather Tuttle. Good evening, board and Dr. Ramey. I thank you all for your work during this challenging time and the opportunity to address you tonight. I'm the mother of a high school student and athlete in Oakwood schools. First, please know I am eager to get my and my family's life back to normal just as much as anybody else. The last 5 months have been a challenge for pretty much everyone I know on one front or another. It's a risky time and we all have to rely on each other to be safe and follow public health guidelines. I understand the district cannot eliminate the risks of virus transmission and can only do what it can to mitigate them. Public Health Dayton Montgomery County recommends that because of the level of transmission within our community right now, that schools begin the 2020 fall academic year in a remote learning environment, adding it is ultimately the decision of each district regarding the mode of learning selected. You've informed me that you're working closely with the Oakwood Health Commissioner and respect the guidance from the Montgomery County Health Commissioner, but there's been no voice from these professionals speaking to the community in support of your decision, and this concerns me. The data for our zip code, as released by Public Health Dayton Montgomery County on August 13th, shows that the 45419 zip code has a case rate of 443.8 per 100,000, well above the CDC's recommendation for return to school. Just to compare, June's case rate was 46.4 per 100,000. July's case rate was 238.5 per 100,000. That's a 414% increase over June. So from June's end of month case rate through the 13th of August, approximately 7 weeks, case rates have increased by 856% in just our zip code. Yes, the actual number of cases looks small at 67, but the percentage increase nearly doubling between the end of July and the 13th of August, 2 weeks, is a concern to me. Jeffrey Cooper, Health Commissioner for Dayton and Montgomery County, stated last Thursday night during a Dayton Daily News hosted Facebook Live community conversation that Montgomery County has the highest percentage of COVID cases among young people aged 0 to 19 at 11.8% as compared to other urban areas in Ohio. He also stated that while children do relatively well if they contract COVID, there's been a 90% increase in cases in children since June. He also reiterated they are equally effective as adults in transmitting the virus despite being mostly asymptomatic. Additionally, according to a New York Times interactive case count and map, Montgomery County has the 6th highest number of COVID cases in all of Ohio. Schools across the US were closed down in March with little knowledge of how COVID-19 spreads and impacts communities. Children were separated from each other, and it's only been in recent weeks where coordinated schools, events like sports, band, and other clubs have been getting together, and we are beginning to see how rapidly COVID-19 can spread. Now schools across the US are opening only to turn around and close within a week due to high community transmission of the virus. Kettering Schools Superintendent Inskeep followed the live streamed 4-hour community forum last Thursday, recommended a fully remote start to his board Friday morning at a special Board of Education vote for Kettering schools. This resulted in the board unanimously voting to start fully remote for the first 9 weeks at a minimum. He expressed it well. He said he was not willing to gamble with the lives of students, staff, and teachers. We're all looking for kids to get back to school when it's safe, when the risk is minimized. Learning is going to look different no matter what model is implemented, and I have no doubt safety is at the forefront of every teacher's mind since they are now frontline essential workers. I believe in our teachers, our administrators, and our families. We are a well-resourced, well-funded district. We can find ways to meet the needs of all students in other ways for a short time if needed. It's definitely not ideal, but neither is shutting down school because of a surge in cases and transmission that could have been prevented. Since we seem firm in starting school in the part-time face-to-face model, it's a fair and reasonable expectations that families know what thresholds must be met or the criteria that you will look at regarding the transmission and case rates in Montgomery County, the Dayton metro area, or even just our zip codes to make the decision to shift between models. I also believe it is important for the community to know what information you have that makes you feel part-day face-to-face model is the safest option right now, and what precisely you would deem unsafe. Stating the situation is fluid, that there are many factors that influence this decision is not sufficient. Will level 4 mean an immediate shift to a fully remote model? What about level 3 with 5 markers met? So I asked the board to please request that Dr. Ramey share with the community what facts he has that make him confident we can return to school safely right now when all the data and science is demonstrating otherwise, and what is the criteria he will be considering in shifting between the models. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate those comments. I now believe we're going to shift to a speaker at Harmon, and I believe Hernan is present. When you're ready.
So we're okay. But the medical and public health professional in me has to ask, is that true? What does public health data show? I need something objective. So I know that I've shared this data with all of you via email, but I came here to be sure that the community, that as a community, we all have a very realistic picture of the spread of COVID within our community. And so that if we do reopen next week or a few weeks from now, we're all informed. So to answer the question of the situation in Oakwood, I went to Montgomery County Health Department. I'm going to repeat some of the statistics that Ms. Tuttle just talked about. And I know that we do have a small number of cases in Oakwood, but we are a smaller community. So we really need to compare apples with apples and look at the proportion of cases per population size. And those are the case rates. So if we want to look at the case rates, that will give us an accurate reflection of the transmission of COVID within our city. So here's the data for Montgomery County, as Ms. Tuttle just said. So June's case rate for zip code 45419 was 46.4. July's case rate was 238.5, and August's case rate was, as of the 13th of August, 443.8. All of those data indicate a significant level of community spread and shows an upward trend. As I said before, we all want our kids to get back to normal, but examining the data, it's clear that this is a high-risk time to reopen schools. Public health experts would advise us to wait until transmission rates have decreased to an acceptable level so that we can be confident we did everything in the right way to keep our children and our communities safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Moving back into the Zoom platform, and I believe Ted is up next. Ted, if you're ready.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good evening, Superintendent Ramey and the board members. As you said, I'm Ted Josue. I live at 42 Spirea. I have a junior high school student and a high school student. I want to just express, first of all, my appreciation for all the hard work that you all have been doing under these horrible circumstances. I wouldn't want to have your job right now. And thanks again for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. So I wanted to take the opportunity to address the board regarding option 1 and option 2, and then ask a question regarding notification. So first of all, let me say that whatever your circumstances are, there are no easy choices when deciding on sending our kids back to school during a pandemic. I've seen it quoted several times that I think it said 72% of survey respondents chose option 1. But without the context of why parents chose option 1, it really paints an incomplete picture of the situation. So as my family personally has struggled with this decision, I've had a lot of conversation with friends, neighbors, other parents, trying to understand, trying to help formulate us in our choice. And I've had a full spectrum of responses as to why other families chose option 1. And some parents have expressed that they have absolutely no concern about COVID-19. One dad told me he thinks it's a big hoax. Another told me that our kids aren't in any real danger from the virus because it seems to affect them less than adults. Conversely, some parents are terrified of sending their kids back to school, fearing the worst outcome. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle. My family personally, we chose option 1, not because we wanted to really send our kids back to school in the middle of a pandemic, but as Oakwood residents, we really value the education that Oakwood offers. We moved here specifically for that. We pay dearly for that privilege. We always support our schools. We always support the district. We're volunteers at the schools, and we always support the levies. Even when we don't necessarily agree with some of the decisions that are being made, we understand the importance of supporting the schools. However, in the case of the options that were given to us for returning to school in fall, I take a very strong objection. By making option 1 the only option for our children to be taught by Oakwood staff, we're basically, I feel myself that we're being coerced into putting our children and our families at risk because we want to provide them with the education that they're entitled to and that we pay for. We want to make these options work, and we want to make sure that everybody, it's a hard decision, everybody is entitled to their personal choices. But because option 2 doesn't include education by Oakwood staff, it's really no better than option 3. It's like homeschooling with someone else's curriculum. And I think if you guys would have taken the time to ask parents, so why did you choose option 1? Or if you would have asked the question, if option 2 was offered by Oakwood teachers, would you have chosen option 2 over option 1? I think what you would have found is that significantly fewer than 72% of families would have chosen option 1. I know we would have chosen option 2 if it was available by Oakwood staff. And so, so that's my comments on that. I think that a lot of us, I've seen a lot of comments from parents saying that, oh, if you choose option 1 and you're hoping the schools go remote, you're undermining the intent of option 1, or that you're trying to sabotage it. But trust me, nobody wants this to succeed more than us. you know, as a community, we want what's best for our children. We all want the same things, even though we approach it from different directions. I think what we want is a safe environment for our kids to learn and for them to get the Oakwood education that we all are entitled to. And that's my comment on that. Now, the question I have is regarding notifications. Okay, so while my children were students at Harmon, there were many times that they received a notification if a child had lice. They would send a thing home notifying the family that, oh, someone in the class had lice, etc. And lice is significantly less, you know, yeah, it's gross, but it's not potentially going to, you know, have severe lifelong lasting impacts on a person's life. So my question really is how, so if a student comes to school and is COVID positive, how is that going to get relayed to the parents? How are we going to be notified of this? And I've heard, and I've spoken with district staff who said, well, there's HIPAA and FERPA considerations to be considered, et cetera. So I didn't really get a good answer. And I think as a community, it's really important for us to know if we are putting our kids in this environment, you know, how are we going to be notified by the district when there's an event that might impact them or our family? And with that, I will give my time back. And I, again, thank you for all of your hard work. Please don't consider any of this as a criticism. It's not. We applaud your valiant effort here. But, you know, we're parents, and obviously you are too. And so I'm sure we're all concerned equally. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. And we will certainly follow up with you with a response to that question. So thank you for that. Turning now to Doug. Doug on Zoom.
Right.
We can, Doug. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and ask questions. I'm glad that we can end on questions. I was unsure of the format. I am the parent of a rising first grader and also a preschooler. And I'm here tonight not only as a concerned parent, but I will also disclose that I am a scientist who does research on infectious disease. So that will color my opinions. But there's no way to separate those identities. I will categorize my wife and I as in the group of parents that are returning to school under option 1, but doing so very reluctantly. And I think that describes a very large group of parents. I am going to echo what previous speakers have said. I hate to be redundant, but I think it's important to understand that some of these opinions are very collective, and every parent I talk to, there's a lot of commonalities that I'm hearing. So we chose option 1, not because we were convinced it was safe to go back to school. We are convinced it's a better education, but we're also convinced that, you know, public health is served by staying home, and our health as well. But to us, a remote education involves an educator. And like others, the PLP, well, there was very little data on it, but it did seem like a remote curriculum for us to deliver as homeschooling rather than a remote education. So we reluctantly went with option 1. I have been trying to diagnose why Oakwood didn't offer a remote education. We also moved here for the schools. We support the schools. I think that everyone in town prides itself on the schools. And I'm trying really hard to understand why remote education wasn't offered as an option. And I have picked up on some things. So like other speakers have said, I've heard the May survey cited. And I believe the data you stated. From talking to parents, though, I think it was a very hard ask to predict in May how they would feel in August. I think many were optimistic about what the state of life would be now. And we're more optimistic that we would return to a more normal state than we are now. They were optimistic that we'd have the virus under control. And I won't recount the statistics for you, but both our zip code and our county statistics say that we do not have the virus in control, that it is going in the exact wrong direction. And so I think that having parents I'm really glad you offered the survey. I don't think in May that all of them accurately predicted how they would feel in August. We have also heard the statistics for the amount of students who are returning cited as evidence that people want to return. And I will echo other speakers in saying that, we are returning reluctantly. And if there was a true remote education offered, we would be in that group. And I think many others would as well. Unless we believe that Oakwood parents are substantially different in their thinking from neighboring school districts. From what I can gather, districts that are offering a remote education, by which I mean their teachers teaching either their local curriculum or their teachers facilitating a purchased online curriculum, such as PLP, they have remote rates at the low end of 25%, at the high end of 40%. And from the parents I've talked to, I'm not sure that we would be substantially different from that if we offered a true remote education option. Lastly, we've heard a bit occasionally that maybe Oakwood doesn't have the resources to offer remote education. I'm not an educational administrator, so I can't really delve into the specifics there. But I mean, in talking with teachers at other districts, it is my impression that they have not typically had to add staff, with the acknowledgement that remote students do not have the same number of contact hours. They offer remote education with their existing staff. But again, I may not be privy to the deals, and that is specific to the primary and perhaps middle school grades, which we are in, and I understand becomes much harder to execute at the high school level. All that to say, I appreciate how difficult some of these decisions are for you. I also sit on boards and groups that have to make decisions which are not normally public health decisions, but suddenly are groups making public health decisions. I would like to end with two questions for you, and I am happy that you can take these away and reflect. The first is there any chance that you would consider offering a remote education option instead of an online curriculum option? As I said, I think you would quickly see a large group of parents shift to that option, with those students returning now being benefited by a lower student count, getting to use the larger rooms.
Doug, if I could interrupt, if you could get to your second question, you're well over 5 minutes, but we certainly want to accommodate your second question, please.
Yeah, thank you for the accommodation. So that is my first question. The second question is an echo of one you heard previously. So under what circumstances will option 1 shift to remote learning? I understand the county stage, the level 4 emergency would shift us, but I'm sure that you understand that a disaster preparedness plan, which this is, needs parameters defined in advance based on more local data. How many cases in school. And so as you define those, I would appreciate, as a parent returning, if you could share those parameters.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the comments and the questions. I believe we have one final speaker tonight coming through Zoom, and turn it over to Erin, please.
Hi, this is Erin Tomazik. I'm the mother of 2 Oakwood senior high students. I'm also a volunteer on the PTO committee, and I really do appreciate all the work that you all have done over the spring and the summer. I really value that, and it really does mean a lot to me. So we do have some comments, my husband and I, and I'll be giving those. And some of them will be a little bit of a repetition from previous parents, but I think it's important to reiterate them. So yes, a large percentage of parents chose option 1, and we allowed our kids to be placed in option 1 by default because it was the only option that offers Oakwood instruction from Oakwood teachers. Oakwood schools is why we chose to live here and why we choose to remain here. Being placed in option 1 does not mean we think it's safe to go back in person. And I am interested to know how many parents in option 1 also think we should start remotely. As Doug said, I would very much like to have a remote option taught by Oakwood teachers. The Ohio Public Health Advisory System, having Montgomery County at red, level 3 out of 4, has guidelines to limit attending gatherings of any number. Montgomery County Public Health recommends that schools begin the year in a remote learning environment. This board is following state restrictions on public gatherings by limiting in-person participation to 10 people. So how is it okay for hundreds of our kids to be in school buildings at once? What Oakwood-specific data are being used to supersede county and state recommendations? How is Oakwood deemed to be safe to be open when so many surrounding school districts have decided that they are not safe? We are connected to our surrounding communities. We worked hard to teach our kids to be responsible and respectful, wash your hands, wear masks, maintain social distance, and avoid crowds, especially indoors. We've taught them the reasons for these rules and the potentially tragic consequences for not following them. Kids are smart. If we send them back to school, a crowded indoor environment like we've told them to avoid, what does that teach our kids about following safety recommendations and believing the things we tell them? We all, parents and kids, desperately wish we could go back to normal. School is going to be vastly different this year, regardless of the method of instruction. We aren't going back to normal. We're all aware of the stress kids can feel from being away from an in-person school experience. But what about the stress on a kid wondering whether they brought home an infection from school that risked the life of a parent or grandparent? How is being under that stress conducive to a healthy learning environment? As a kid or teacher, how do you focus when you're worried about following all the safety guidelines so hopefully you don't get sick or get someone you love sick? How much of the already shortened class periods will be effective instruction in that uncomfortable and distracting environment? It's possible that remote learning will offer more consistent and uninterrupted instruction, especially since the district has worked so hard this summer to make sure all Oakwood teachers are ready to go remote day one. So I have a question that I would like an answer to. There are many symptoms that would cause a child to need to stay home. There's no penalty to the student for staying home. There's work on Google Classroom Progress Book that is available to follow up with, but beyond this makeup work, how will Oakwood support students who are required to stay home under your guidelines? I'd also like to follow up with Ted's question about notification. Given the testing turnaround time currently, how is it possible to mitigate infection spread when we have days between a test or between symptoms and a result? So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you.
Erin, thank you for your comments, and thank you for the comments of all the presenters, and for the for allowing me to refer to you by your first names. I apologize for the informality, but it allowed for an easier conversation flow. So thank you all. We're going to jump back into our agenda this evening and move into the curriculum showcase. Dr. Ramey, or maybe Dr. Lang.
Nope, actually it's me. And I'm going to turn this over to Tracy Hale, who's actually going to do a communications showcase, walk us through our website and where some of the answers to some of the questions are and some of the protocols and pieces that we just heard about as well. This is part of the great work that she's been doing and has been recognized by the state organization. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. Forgive her for the delay. It'll take just a minute. She's doing all the producing.
We're getting there. A little problem. Okay, there it is. Okay. Yes, so in light of all that has been happening in the last few months, we have increased our communications with the community, knowing that was necessary. We have beefed up our website as well as the email system that comes with our website, known as Messages. We really started that at the beginning of last year, and it was great to have that as a resource when our teachers and our buildings in the district needed to get information out. So that has been very helpful. Over the last month or so, we have created some new sections of our website, which we know are already getting a good deal of traffic. In the last week, we have had more than 7,000 visits to our website. About 54% of those came directly to our site. They were not linked to anything. They were people who actually put in oakwoodsschools.org and came directly to the website. We know that a little over half of those are from smartphones, so we consider that when we are designing our pages, and about 43% are folks that are coming on their desktops to look. So the remaining are using tablets or some other devices. The number one page we have seen over the last few weeks, not surprisingly, is our Oakwood Schools Reopen Plan page. We continue to update this as information becomes available. So if you have visited the page before and you go to it now, you may see some additions to it. I try to put those additions at the top so folks can easily know what they have seen and what they have not seen. So most recently, as folks were informed of, we added the cleaning guidelines. This was added on Friday, and then we sent that out as a message. So our cleaning guidelines goes to a next page. It allows folks to see our district cleaning procedures. We will continue to add to this, as well as we will have building specific instructions, and that way people can see what we are doing to achieve our goals. So that is on there. We also added the week before our health protocol, and that has its own page. And we will go to that one. If you have not seen it, we have some hand washing information with our district nurse, Mrs. Barnett. We have a "What should I do if" graphic, which we think helps a lot of people in different situations. It may not just be what you're dealing with in the school district. It may be something you are dealing with at work or with family, but it does offer some steps which we think are very helpful, and then gives more information from the CDC, which is where this information originated. We have our protocol for how we deal with staff or student who test positive. If someone is exposed, the definition of close contact, which we hear a lot about, and contact tracing, we kind of included that information there as well. So the idea is we are trying to provide as much information as we can to help everyone better prepare for what they are dealing with now. We added the times. This was added today because they are a little different, and they are going to mean adjusting for folks coming for AM or PM, maybe how they are planning their mornings with their family. And so we want to make sure to try to provide the information in kind of a one-stop shop for our families who need the information. So where can we put all of this information to help? Part of what we are working on in our buildings are more building specific plans regarding how to get kids in and out of the building. And so we do have some information regarding that. We have some building specific schedules because our junior high and high school students, not just their families, wanted to know what they have when and how to plan. And so all of that is on there for their first 2 weeks, and then a normal schedule for them as well. So if you continue to scroll down, you will see we have FAQs, which will actually be updated tonight. So as we get more of those, we continue to add that. FAQ document is about 24 pages long at this point. It is by category, and new information that is added there will be highlighted in yellow. So again, I know not everyone's going to read all 24 pages every time, but you can scan through and look for those. If you were not able to see the Board of Education meeting from July, the entire presentation has been recorded as a video, and then the individual slides are there as well. So you can see we've kind of put the early information at the bottom and then worked up. What we feel is our comprehensive plan was created in 4 parts, and those are the documents that you see here, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is what we spent a good deal of time in the spring and summer creating. And the idea was, as Dr. Ramey talked about in the July meeting, that we would go from the 2-page, what looks like an executive summary, and then continue to offer more and more detail. So if you got your answers in the reopening summary, you could stop there. But if you wanted more details, you could continue on. So we continue to add to this. We also continue to update our resources. So as more information comes out, those get posted in our resources as well. And most of those are links to websites, not just PDFs. So as the Ohio Department of Health or CDC continues to update their guidelines, you will see that updated information as well. Another new section of our website in an effort to help parents is what we have as the Parent Communications Hub. So on our district site, you can see there are portals at the top, parents, students, staff, and alumni. And on the parent portal is the link to the Parent Communications Hub. This was something I saw on at a conference, and it seemed very helpful. It seemed, again, to provide one place where our parents could find information. So we have gotten this ready to roll out kind of in the next week. This has some direct information. So if you wanted to get the phone number for Lang School, it would be there, but at the same time, you could get the one for Harmon. So if you needed to call the attendance line for multiple schools, that would be easier than going into each school's website and looking. If you had a question regarding gifted services, you would have some information about that, know who the different GIS were in the different buildings, or if you needed more information, you could also go to the website for the gifted area. So we have tried to do that. We have the connection to the reopen plan on the tabs, the health page, our mask policy, cleaning. For folks that are going to have students in option 2, we will continue to update this information. The most important information right now for option 2 is the Zoom webinar that's going to take place on Wednesday from 6 to 7. So, and then there's more information about schools PLP on there. Also another link to our frequently asked questions. We update news stories fairly regularly. And so we have the district news on here, but you can also see by buildings. Each of those have their own news page. The district calendar is there. Additional resources, if you needed to find out information about the one-to-one rollout that is happening, you would click there. If you had an Easy Pay question and you didn't remember the Easy Pay sign up, it is there as well. And you can see staff information, new student registration, parent access. And then we have our feeds, and I'm in a building that's kind of blocking it, so we can't see it right now, but on a normal, where it is not being blocked, you would see Facebook and Twitter feeds for our district as well. So even if you don't subscribe to Facebook, you can see what our feed looks like. So we will continue to update this parent hub. I think it's going to be very helpful. What I would like to do is then move it into the different pages. So if you are a parent who goes through just the Harmon page, you would have a Harmon parent portal connection as well. And then we would do it for the other buildings as well. It just takes a little time to build it, but I think it's going to be very worthwhile. And when we know that we are getting 7,000 visits in a week, I think it's very important that we continue to stress that our website is kept current. I am on it most days, all day long, with the idea of how can we help people find the information they need. So as we know we get certain questions, then I set out to find how to make that answer easier for our families and our students and our staff to be able to locate on the website. So we like to believe that our website is the source. It is a place you can go and you can search out that information. We're also going to continue to send you that information directly. We did not do a communication survey this year just because we were already doing so much of that kind of work following up with the school closure in the spring. But we know from our last survey that the majority of our parents wanted information sent to them. That has been why we have pushed for more sign up to the messages system, and we will continue to send information there. But for folks that want to find it for themselves, and maybe it's between messages and they just want to see what's happening, there also can do that, whether it is on the reopen page or it is on the Parent Hub.
Thank you very much, Tracy. While we certainly understand there is a debate as to how we reopen, hopefully hearing some of that from Tracy, there is no debate as to how we are trying to improve our communication efforts and reach out to the community through many of Tracy's great efforts. So thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Dr. Ramey, before we move on, could I understand that perhaps our Oakwood Schools Foundation speaker maybe didn't come through the Zoom call as best as we had hoped. So if you could summarize perhaps the talking points, that would be appreciated.
Sure, happy to do that and look for help with that as well. But before I do that, let me echo what you had said about the efforts in our communication area. We get phone calls and emails on a regular basis from other districts that are asking us to, if they can steal the information that we have available, or how did you come up with that idea, or can we have that graphic? Because what Tracy's doing is outstanding, and that's a direct result. Our board expects that we have clear, comprehensive, complete, and current information available to everybody in these kind of situations, and she's doing some really good work with that. Great. I'm not sure what the feedback was, or whether that was a garbage truck in the back. Or...
Is it the speaker that's on? I'm sharing a worship.
Okay. So just a quick summary of the Oakwood Schools Foundation. So every year they do a grant cycle. Actually, they do 2 different grant cycles. And about a month ago, they reached out to us and asked us about this year's grant cycle. And we talked about maybe we could do something district-wide, something to add a layer of security. And the idea of air purifiers came up. The foundation thought that was a great idea. And so we were able to work with them in order to get that approved by their grants committee and by their board. And they've committed to that. We've been able to order those air purifiers. They're out. Obviously, they're a pretty popular item, and we'll get those just as soon as we can. But the willingness for the foundation to adjust and shift is certainly appreciated. Again, they are a wonderful partner for us and for our students to help us go above and beyond what the normal budget would allow us to do. They were able to help us do that this year, and we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, Dr. Ramey, thanks for following up with that. I know that it was important information that we wanted to make sure that that all participants and attendees heard. So thank you for that. Yeah, and it sounds like the feedback's a little better. So thank you for that as well. And we will now move into board reports. And I'm going to start with Mrs. Quigley.
Bear with me for just a second here.
Sure.
Okay, so as Dr. Ramey just mentioned, we had the Oakwood Schools Foundation support the reopening of the schools through the donation of the air filters, commercial air filters for each of our classrooms. And it's really extraordinary the way that the Schools Foundation continues to support our students and, you know, upends their plans in the best interest of our students and staff to ensure our health and safety as we get back to school here. Beyond that, the Oakwood Schools Foundation and Alumni Association are working toward planning the Comeback Lumberjack event this year. That is going to be homecoming weekend, And as in years past, sorry, my screen just flipped around a little bit there. As in years past, it's sure to be a good time, but this year they are working toward having a virtual platform and plan and have program planning and sponsorship, as well as other fundraising efforts, including special initiatives like the Howard Sales Memorial Project. So that will still be taking place. It'll just be in a different format. And once again, Schools Foundation continues to support the school district, even in these times of adversity, by changing course when it's necessary. The campaign activities continuing, and they've solidified their volunteer structure, which includes a core campaign advisory committee with 5 confirmed members, and then additional invitations and meeting requests are pending. So we will have a full slate of volunteers working on that 1.5 campaign going forward. And then, of course, the Schools Foundation will continue to work with the Hodge Group on solicitation, and then also with the branding, which is still to be finalized, and then ongoing campaign prospecting. So overall, the point is that business continues. The Schools Foundation is moving forward and continues to support the district despite these difficult times and difficult circumstances.
Great. Thank you, Meredith. Any other board reports before we move on to finance? Seeing none or not anticipating any, we'll move on to budget and finance. And Mr. Shaw, please.
Recommendation 5A to approve the attached list of transportation reimbursement requests for 2019 to 2020.
May I please have a motion to approve the recommendation at 5A?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Dar,
Aye.
Ms. Quigley,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Duell.
Aye.
Item 5B under Budget and Finance, recommendation for change order 2 for the Master Facilities Plan Phase 1 project.
May I please have a motion to approve the recommendation at 5B?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Quigley,
Aye.
Ms. Dar,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Duell.
Aye.
Item 5C, recommendation is made to approve the MOU between the Oakwood Schools Foundation and the Oakwood City School District.
Any motion, please, to approve the recommendation at 5C?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Ms. Dar,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Ms. Quigley,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Duell. Mr. Duell.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 5D, recommendation to approve employment substitute teacher as attached.
A motion, please, to approve the recommendation at 5D.
So moved. Second.
Dan?
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Quigley,
Aye.
Ms. Dar,
Aye.
Mr. Duell.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any unfinished business? Any new business by the board? Okay, Dr. Ramey, administrative reports and superintendent recommendations, please.
Thank you. Item 8A, recommendation to approve the attached 2020-2021 district calendar reflecting the new day of school for Oakwood schools.
May I please have a motion to approve the recommendation at 8A?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Ms. Quigley,
Aye.
Ms. Dar,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Duell.
Aye.
Item 8D, recommendation is made to approve the new policy 8850.01 face covering without a prior reading due to the COVID-19. Plans are to add an informational communication announcement for the September 2020
Great. May I please have your motion to approve the recommendation in 8B as stated?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
So Dan, before you go, just, we had shared this with the board at the last board meeting, and changes, obviously.
The governor on Friday, the order on Friday or on Saturday, then officially adjusted the shields part of the order. And we did receive some feedback from community members who asked a couple of good questions. We were able to adjust this policy. That's a little different than what we're not significantly different. And unfortunately,
probably will change again over the next what else happens. So
that's where we are
before the vote.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Dar?
Aye.
Mrs. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye.
Item
Item 8D, recommendation is made to approve the new course proposal for AP capstone seminar as presented in July 13, 2020 board meeting.
May I please have a motion to approve the recommendation at 8C?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Dar?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye.
Item
Item
8D,
8D,
recommendation is made to approve
policy
policies 312008 and 412008 as presented at the July 13th, 2020 board meeting.
And a motion, please, to approve the recommendation at 8D.
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Dar?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye.
Item E, recommendation is made to approve the agreement with Montgomery County Educational Service Center to provide school PLP courseware.
May I please have a motion to approve the recommendation at 8E?
So moved. Second.
Dan?
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Ms. Dar?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye.
Item E, recommendation is made to participate in the federal programs that are applicable to the district and for which the district is eligible for the 2021 school year.
A motion, please, to approve the recommendation at 8F.
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Dar?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye. Dr. Ramey, continuing with personnel items, please.
Please, board, if we could take item 9A through G together. All in one.
Sure. May I please have a motion to approve the recommendations at 9A through 9G, please?
So moved.
So moved.
You get that, Dan?
Second.
Okay, Dan?
Ms. Dar?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye.
And on personnel items, 10,
We can do A through I,
and then
and
after
after
the
the first,
second,
second.
do a short presentation of the people. We did not invite them to the meeting, but we had a short presentation that we'd like to do as well. So, item 10, A through I, please.
Great. May I please have a motion to approve the recommendations at 10A through 10I?
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
So, we're gonna hold.
Oh, sorry.
Turn it over to the couch.
And they'll do share
Gary.
slice.
Slice.
So we're going to introduce our new staff members that we are hiring at the staff meeting. We didn't invite them, but you'll see on your screen there a picture that they submitted that was part of our opening day video. So first we will start with Maria Juergens. She received her Bachelor of Arts in French and her Master's of Education in Multi-Age French Education. She taught at Belbrook for the past 5 or 6 years, where she also served as theater director, class advisor, international and French club advisor. And as you can see there, she loves traveling and sharing those adventures with her students. So we're excited to have her join us. Next, we have Rachel Judge. Rachel will be an IS at the junior high. She received her bachelor's in special education from The Ohio State University and her master's in educational leadership from Wright State University. And she most recently worked as the program coordinator for the Transition to Living classroom with Warren County Educational Service Center. Next, Brittany, you met at a past board meeting. Next, we have Miranda Pyatt that you got to meet today. She is a licensed school treasurer. She received her bachelor's in financial management and investments from Wright State University. She's worked with the SRC for the past 4 years, and she's had the opportunity to work in multiple districts and different treasurers department positions. So excited to have her. Met Joy at, I think, May board meeting. Next, we have Jamie Schindler. She will be an IS at Smith. Jamie received her Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood from the University of Toledo. And she just completed 2 years at Miamisburg City School District. And before she started at Miamisburg, she worked as a long-term sub for us as an IS at Smith. And she has also served as the diving coach for Oakwood for the past 3 years. Next, we have Gina Weckesser. She will be Title I reading at Smith. Gina earned her Bachelor of Arts from Miami University and a reading endorsement from UD, along with her Master's of Education in Reading and Literacy. She's taught 1st through 3rd grade, and then for the past 15 years, she has been an adjunct faculty member at the University of Dayton and also the Dyslexia Practicum and teacher coordinator for that. Excited to have her. So those are our new team members that you are hiring this evening. Some really outstanding hires and an unusual hiring season and process that we stayed committed to through the auditions and all that, you know, all those pieces. So excited to have them.
Great. Thanks so much, Allison. Appreciate it. And Mr. Shaw, if you could move us into executive session.
Got to vote.
Let's vote on the recommendations at 10A through 10I, please. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Ms. Starr?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye. Okay, thank you for that. And now, Mr. Shaw, if you'd move us into it.
It is recommended that we enter into executive session for the specific purpose of the appointment or employment of regulated individuals.
And please have a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Dan?
Ms. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Ms. Starr?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Duell?
Aye. With that, we will move into executive session, after which point we will exit, and there is no additional board action anticipated. So we appreciate the participants and the presenters and the attendees this evening, and we look forward to next week. Thank you all and have a good night.